Hi, welcome to OFMA's yes, this is June Peer Learning Circle. These happen every first Tuesday of the month. And we use the same link. So whatever you use to get here, you can just bookmark that link. We'll always use that one every month. These are a statewide open discussion for people who run farmers markets to talk about whatever is on your mind, whatever is emergent and going on with your markets. These sessions, I really look for you to just go ahead and participate. It's okay to jump in and talk. Make sure you're taking turns with others and giving other people a chance to talk too, but you don't have to wait for me to call on you. You can just jump in when you want. We're counting on hearing from you and hearing your questions and hearing the advice and help that you have for others. You can do so. Jump in out loud or jump in on the chat, put in your questions there, respond to others, give each other affirmations, share links and resources. Totally great to see everyone. I love having you on camera because it helps me to see that, to see your faces and get to know you, but also totally fine to not be on camera. I know we're not always ready to have people see us all the time in this Zoom land. This is a casual time. Be comfortable. Maybe you're eating your lunch, stretch, move, kids, pets, whatever's in the background is fine. And that said, this hour is being recorded and we'll put it on our YouTube channel for the other market managers that can't be here at this time. Topics for the Peer Learning Circle are crowdsourced. I take ideas from you guys. So if there's something that you want to talk about in the future, you can email me or put it in the chat right now and I'll try to make that happen. I do try to divide it up kind of in half. When we have a topic, we start with the topic and then I try to, if there's time, open it up for just whatever is on your mind today. So we'll do that today too. Let's see. I wanted to say something else. What was it? Oh, well, it'll come to me. So yeah, today's topic is we're going to be looking at volunteer coordination. That was something that I heard from those of you wanted to get some ideas on that and find out what solutions are working for other people. So I do have a couple farmers markets lined up already to talk about that. Tara from the Come Through Market is going to talk about that. And if Liz is here from Hillsborough Farmers Market, she's going to talk about that. And then I'll just kind of open it up to everyone to talk about their volunteering at their markets. And then I also wanted to let you guys know about a couple things that are coming up more from OFMA. We have some workshops coming up in June, July, and August. June's will be on the brand and marketing toolkit launch that we're doing. We'll have Mesh Studio hosting that one. July, Farmers Market Pros is going to be doing a workshop on supporting your vendors. And in August, the Nonprofit Association of Oregon is doing a workshop on recruiting and retaining board members. Look for more info on that and you can register at OFMA's website. So now I'm just gonna turn this over to Tara right now for her to talk about how volunteering works at the Come Through Market.
Hi, thanks, Amanda. First off, can everyone hear me okay? Because my internet's not great, but I have an Ethernet cord. Okay, so far so good. Yeah, I'm Tara, I use she, they pronouns, and I help run the Come Through Market, which is held in Southeast Portland every first and third Monday, May through October. So I'm the market assistant. The market manager's name is Shiny Flannery. And I also farm with her in community with the Racing Farm Collective. So yeah, this is our fourth year running this market. It's my second year working for the market and our third year at the location we're at, which is the Red on Salmon. So yeah, we have volunteers and they do various things. So I'm going to show you, maybe it's less boring to look at my stuff versus just me. Okay. Why is this being weird? Here we go. Okay. So this was like from a slide, whoops, that we gave for our vendors, just to kind of help explain to our vendors like that we will have volunteers and these are what the volunteers will do and what they won't do. So helping set up tents, unload vehicles when vendors first get there. If vendors need a bathroom break, the volunteer can stand in for them. They can't sell any of their product, but they can be like, hey, so-and-so is coming back in a second. They just had to use the restroom or they had to take a break. And then also like asking if vendors need anything, looking for me or Shiny, and then helping with like breakdown. So this is like a schedule that I have. So our market runs from 3 to 7, and I'm there with Shiny from 12 to 8. And we start having volunteers come at 1. Now it's like 1:30, and I think I might change it from like 1 to actually 2:30 because I don't know, like our volunteers are just really fast. And then I hate having them just like sitting around. So that's something I'm also kind of dealing with. Was like sometimes there's not a lot for volunteers to do, and then sometimes there is a lot. So it just kind of depends. And then the 3 to 5 shift, I have 2 people. So I have one person who's counting the amount of people that come in. And I think we're supposed to be counting dogs now too, which is kind of cute. And then like just recording on like a little clicker, like how many people, and then I'll check every hour how many people have come in the market. And then we'll have a float. So someone that like travels around, like I was saying earlier, like asking, let me see if I have a better, here we go. This was for the volunteers. So they just check in, see if they need them to fill up a water bottle or if they need to use a bathroom break, or like in a very rare situation, like run and like grab ice from inside the red. We usually don't do that, but sometimes people need that. And yeah, and then the last position is just breakdown, which is kind of the reverse of setup. So just helping the vendors like break down their tents, break down their tables, maybe loading heavy things into their cars. But we by no means like want our volunteers to like set up everything for the vendors or like break everything down. It's just to like kind of help things go a little smoother, because we know not every market has volunteers. So it's like a perk being at our market, but it sounds like a lot of you are interested in having volunteers. So the way that I recruit them actually has just like been 1, like word of mouth, and then 2, just on Instagram. So I'll put like a link and then share it in a story, and then also have like a post about it. So this is what I'm recruiting. I recruited for, May, June, and then now I'm doing July, August, and then September, October, because I found last year that a lot of people ended up just kind of like fading out, or people ended up going to work because COVID, a lot of people were like not working and then working, and it just got chaotic. So I decided to do it in little chunks. So it just looks like, what your pronouns are, what shift you're interested in. And then I just asked a couple questions about like why they're interested in, and because we are a Black and Indigenous people of color market, if they're a white volunteer, I kind of just ask them to think about their impact as a white person in the market, because we did have an incident last year with a volunteer. So I'm just trying to avoid that in the future. Yeah, I think it's kind of what I got for that, but I'm totally here for questions if people have questions.
Hi, Rebecca, just go.
The red is a wonderful urban space. I don't know a tremendous amount about it, but is this market site, though wonderful, also challenging in getting the unloading accomplished? Does it have to happen super fast because of the location and limitations of how much unloading space? Or am I
Nope.
so the volunteers aren't needed just because it's the space. It's what you stated already, that you want to make this like the most inviting and easy to say yes site for an organization for your people.
Yeah, it's just a courtesy, makes it go a little smoother. And then we're hoping that like, once they get their footing, because this is an incubator market, so they'll like eventually graduate and leave and go on to like other markets. So a lot of times this is people's first market, that they'll like get the hang of doing their own thing, you know, like, oh, okay, yeah. I
But you're
actually can just
trying to
set up.
remove every possible barrier or lighten every possible load so that they can see their way clear to get started.
Mhm, yeah.
Tara, are there things that volunteers do that your market uses volunteers for that aren't like market day stuff?
No. Yeah, just market day. Yeah, I don't use them really for anything else, since our team's pretty small. It's just 2 of us. So, well, actually 3 now because we have a SNAP coordinator, but yeah. But actually our volunteers have helped like recruit other volunteers. So that is something that they've done, like, oh, I have a friend. So yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah, I had a question too. Thank you so much for sharing. I run the Forest Grove and Cornelius Farmers Markets, and we have volunteers at our markets, specifically at Forest Grove because it's pretty big. But I just had a question on how you coordinate volunteers during the market, and if, like, are you the point person who manages the volunteers, and any other like tips or strategies to keep the volunteers engaged? And also like have the tasks so they know what to do.
Yeah, I'm the coordinator for the volunteers, and so they check in with me. So once I have like the amount of people that I need, I did like a little mini orientation. And if they weren't able to get it, I sent them my orientation. It just kind of broke down, like I sent them like the map of what our market looks like, and gave like a description of like what your position will be doing. And then yeah, basically let them like ask any questions that they had. But as far as like retaining volunteers, I can usually like tell the people that like want to be there and keep showing up. Some kind of awkward thing that happens quite often is people will just show up and say that they're there to volunteer, and I have no idea who they are. Or they're just like someone in community that I know who's just a little quirky. So sometimes I'll find them something to do, and sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know why you're here. Yeah, but there's, like I said, there's times where like there's just not a lot for people to do. So it's kind of like a trial and error. You're like, maybe I should have the window of them being here a little smaller. So just kind of have to figure it out. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And that brings up another thing too, of like the window of volunteers too. Our shift is like 2 to 5:30 and then 5:30 to 9. So it's a really long time. And has the like hour-long shift or 2-hour-long shift worked well for you?
Yeah, sometimes it's a little too long. So like I'll fill in for them, like the person that's doing like the counting at the door. I'll let them like take a break, or like sometimes they want to do shopping at the market, or like just hang out. And then I usually have like the shift, for example, from like 3 to 5. I'll have 2 volunteers, and then I'll have them trade off. So like one person is the float, and then the other person is the door, and then they'll switch.
Thank you.
Tara, what website did you say you used for them to apply for volunteering?
So it's not a website, it's just a Google, what is it?
Google
Hang on one
document.
second. It's not a Google document, it's a Google form. Yeah. So it's like
Got
a
it.
purple icon. And it takes some like getting used to if you've never used it, like, because there's different ways you can ask like a multiple choice question or like a paragraph style kind of thing. So, but it's nice, you can customize it. And then with Instagram now, if you use that, there's an option to put a link in your story. So you can just have that right there. And that seems to work pretty good.
Very cool. Thank you.
So is the Hillsborough Farmers Market here? Don't think any of you are. Yeah, okay. I guess she wasn't able to make it. She was going to talk, Liz was going to talk a little bit about volunteering at her market too. But yeah, anybody else want to talk about what they do at their market or how they use volunteers, how you sign up volunteers, where do you go to recruit volunteers, any of that kind of stuff? Does everybody here have volunteers, or are people like not using volunteers at their market in this group?
Vonda is on our call, and she has had the title volunteer coordinator. That we kind of have switched that to events because we are not very volunteer intensive. However, we do use volunteers periodically for Power of Produce activities, and we opted, and we're in the second of two grants that OFMA has, and we have opted to use paid staff for our accounts. We found that it's a hard job to sell to volunteers. They want to help the farmers. And so I think Come Through is on something there in terms of likability of the ask. When people find out they're just going to stand at various entrances with a clicker, or they don't really have, they don't have star prize anymore. So I think Vonda could talk more about she uses them in POP.
Actually, I wish I had volunteers for POP. I'm kind of struggling with that right now. I wish I had them for a 2-bite challenge activity that we have. I'm kind of going through, the community college has a platform where they put up volunteer needs in the community, and I've had 0 hits from that. So I'm not sure. I think I may be covering that myself. We tend to, if we have an event like serving ice cream sundaes, or we're going to do strawberry shortcake, my husband actually is an advisor for high school kids and for a college club too at OSU. So I kind of go through him to get some folks for that, which works out well. So we don't have a regular volunteer customer base. It's kind of, it's kind of tricky. Most of the events that we have are groups like Master Gardeners that bring their own people. And so if we do a specific activity at our market, like the Sundays or something, then I just kind of go where I know I can find people. But we don't have, people out there that are anxious to volunteer at the market. We don't have a way to contact folks to do that. So I'm kind of curious about that Instagram story with a link. That's kind of a great idea. So yeah, that's kind of where we are.
What we do get sometimes is an anxious college student who just found out that they have to do 10 hours of something by Thursday. And we're usually unprepared to help them out of their jam because, just with the timing of it, it's hard for us to develop a meaningful activity for somebody in 0 hours.
Hi, everybody. My name is Olivia. I'm the assistant market manager at the Hillsdale Farmers Market, and I just started about a month and a half ago. And one of the big things that they were very clear during my hiring is that part of my job is kind of breathing new life into our existing volunteer program. So I was really excited when I saw that this was the topic for the peer circle today. The way that it works with us is that we have kind of a listserv of people who have expressed interest in volunteering in the past. And I send out a weekly email on Tuesdays with a sign-up sheet that they can sign up week by week. So where Tara is working on a model of commit for 2 months at a time, ours is really more flexible than that. I'm not saying that either way is right or wrong. We definitely do have days where nobody signs up and then we're like, what do we do? But I think that a lot of people do appreciate the ability to kind of look at their weekend and be like, oh, I could help out for a while. We have 4 shifts. We do a setup and a breakdown shift. And then in the middle, we have somebody helping at the info booth, which does the counting, that kind of thing. And we have somebody helping at our pop booth. I really liked Tara's idea of a floater person. So if we can get our volunteer program a little bit more robust, then I think maybe I would want to add that as well as a ad for our vendors. But yeah, where we find a lot of our volunteers is we have a lot of people who are of retirement age who want like a regular shift that they can do to help out. And we have a lot of high school students who need to meet those volunteer hour requirements. So we're actually in the high school parking lot. So I think that helps us with visibility for them. If they come to like kick a ball around on a Sunday, they can see that the market's happening right there. But I would say that's the majority of our volunteer base right now is either of those 2 demographics.
Yeah, Woodstock has a huge amount of volunteer support. I think that's what makes it a really special market for the vendors and customers. We have like a vendor survey, and one of the very top feedback that we get each year is how helpful the volunteers are and just how much they bring to the market. We have a volunteer coordinator. She's the only other paid staff member, and she also is community booth and events coordinating. I'd say so. Just like one helpful thing that we found last year was she put a application up on volunteermatch.org, and she did that in the fall and like late summer when it was, each year that's exactly the time when people get a little bit burnt out on volunteering, or it gets too hot, or they go back to work. And that was when a huge, amount of people applied on that website, and we got like a whole new batch of volunteers. But usually we have some of the volunteers have been there, every single week for over 10 years. So it's definitely a very dedicated volunteer base, but it does thin out at some point and it gets difficult as always.
I just put in the chat a link to the Northwest Oregon Volunteer Administrators Association. I found that to be a really helpful place to go when I was running a market. They have everything from like big nonprofits that have like dedicated staff, people who see their career path as being volunteer administrators, to people like me who is like, I'm just trying to coordinate volunteers in my like side time of like running the market. And we didn't necessarily have a person dedicated to that all the time, or that person's job was very divided, and the membership wasn't that expensive. And there's things you can participate in and take without even being a member there. And they have their own like groups like this, peer learning circles, where you can just go talk to other people about volunteering. And this was pre-COVID, but they had like happy hours and things like that I thought were fun to go to and talk to other volunteer administrators.
I remember there were There were some other sites that I was referred to by county officials in the early days of the pandemic. Because it was maybe thought that we would end up having to do more perimeter management than we could do. And I didn't get much out of those sites. And fortunately, we were able to manage without it. But I guess there are a lot of these things. I wish I could remember what those were. I would actually say to avoid one of them if I could remember the name of it.
Yeah, one site that didn't work well for us was hands-on, which was unfortunate because it's focused on the Portland area on all different volunteer events, but was not user-friendly, and was really hard to keep track of volunteers or even like read the sign-up sheet to see who was signed up for the day, which was unfortunate. So we use, I think it's called, volunteersignup.org. And that's a pretty easy website to navigate, but also Google Forms is very simple. And the other thing with Google Forms is that you can translate it onto like a Google spreadsheet where it automatically fills in a Google spreadsheet for you. So you have it all just in like a easy, accessible list.
We use volunteer sign up as well. Just another post for that one. The thing that I appreciate about it is that you can copy, like how we're working on a weekly basis, you can copy your old sheets really easily. So I don't have to redo that work every single week. I can just copy it and change the date. The link is really easy to grab and send to people. Like I said, we have an older community that does a lot of volunteering with us. So as much as we can reduce the technology piece for them is good.
I think an important part of recruiting volunteers is making sure that volunteering at your farmer's market is visible. The best way to get people involved, I think, is that other people who are already going to your farmer's market see that there are volunteers there and think, hey, I would like to be more involved with my market as well. So that means doing things like making your volunteers wear name tags. They hate doing this. I hate wearing name tags. But it helps people know that people are volunteering at your market and it's something that they can do. One of the perks for volunteers and wearing the name tags was it made the volunteers visible to the vendors. And then the vendors would often do this thing. They'd be like, oh, you're a volunteer at the market. Oh, well, I'll give you the vendor discount then. And I really encourage that with my vendors, and having the vendors call it the vendor discount also really made the volunteers feel special. Like we're part of this special community. We're not getting the volunteer discount. We're getting the vendor discount. Like that just, a lot of them thought that was really cool. And having signs up at the info tent, like, do you want to volunteer? Sign up here. Like having that just be really visible, and thanking your volunteers in e-newsletters all the time or in your social media, just making sure that your number one audience of people who are already coming to your market know that they could volunteer there, and having a variety of different amounts of times and commitments. We did everything from the 10-minute, somebody could just come in, do the 10-minute customer count and go. They didn't have to do all of them for the whole day. They could do their shopping, count for 10 minutes and go. And we made them feel like that is just as valuable as the people who are coming for 2 hours to do setup. And then also letting people know who come and maybe end up, I remember feeling some anxiety when a volunteer would not have something to do, and just really affirming for them that, like, look, I know, just enjoy the market right now here, sit here. Do you want some water? Like, I know you don't have anything to do right now, but you being here and being available for when things get busy and I need someone to fill in all of a sudden is helpful to me, and like makes me feel calmer and easier about doing my job. So know that even if you're not doing something right at this minute, it's still really useful. Just making volunteers always feel welcome and like they are serving a purpose, even when they're maybe not doing a lot. Makes them not have the experience where like, why did I go there? I didn't do anything. I'm not going to do that again. they'll come back if they know that they were useful. So thinking through how you are thanking your volunteers is another really important thing.
To the end of volunteers being more visible, we just did a get involved booth at our market about 2 weeks ago where we handed out kind of one sheets on volunteering and on our board positions and that kind of stuff. And I was surprised by how many people didn't realize that there were volunteers at our market, people who are regulars and just like didn't understand. So I'm currently pitching to the board, getting some volunteer t-shirts made that are like all in one color. Because I think, you know, swag makes people feel important, and also it'll stand out as like, oh, there's a whole bunch of people wearing purple over there. Why?
Totally. That's just reminding me that we, you know, if a volunteer came 4 times or did a certain amount of hours or doing something, they got a free market t-shirt, which they were super excited about because we have great t-shirts. Oh, and having on your website what the volunteer thing, what you do, like don't just have a thing that says, if you want to volunteer, send us an email or something like that. Explain like what volunteers do. Think about yourself and where you might want, how you would get involved in other organizations and what it's like to hear that there's a call for volunteers, but not have any information about what it might be doing and how intimidating that could be to sign up for something when you have no idea what it might be. And just explain that like you can ask for information, but asking for information is not committing you to doing anything. We'll talk with you and give you more input of what you might be doing and find the best thing that you would want to do at the market so that people can ask about it without feeling like they've suddenly committed their whole summer to being at the market. I wanted the Hillsborough Farmers Market to be here because they have a pretty good example on their website of like some basic, like here's what you might do at the market that day. And they have a pretty good sign up sheet. And so check out the Hillsborough Farmers Market for some examples on that.
Can I add one other thing too, that I borrowed from the Hollywood Farmers Market and think this is a great idea for volunteers as an activity is to go around the market to take photos and videos and have them send it to you at the market. And oh my gosh, that's been a lifesaver of like for social media and just like being able to do vendor spotlights where it's like, oh, I wanted to take a photo of them, but I have been too busy. So, and some volunteers can take great photos. So highly recommend as an option for an activity.
Yeah, totally. And even remembering with volunteers too, like even if you feel like, gosh, I have a billion pictures already. I don't really need someone to come take pictures this week. Like letting someone come in and do the thing that they want to do helps get them connected to the market. And then maybe you can ask them later for the thing that you actually need. For instance, like joining a committee or becoming a board member or something like that. Like having people start with like much smaller commitment. Volunteering at the market and being there is a great path towards becoming a committee member or a board member. And as a market manager, those people who have spent time at the market and know what operations are like and what it's like being at the market for hours, those are the people you want as your board members because they will understand what you are telling them about how running a market is. So
can anyone cite an instance where your volunteers having contact with farmers has led to an employment relationship there? Like, has anyone gone to work for a farmer selling at markets or on farm work?
I know I've had people who were working as staff at a vendor's booth later when that relationship ended, they liked the market enough that they came and volunteered at the market. I had to go the other way. So I imagine it goes the way Rebecca said too then.
Yeah, I've seen it that way too, Amanda. Or we've had some volunteers have to step in too, just to help with like running square or something on at a vendor's booth. And that does build a relationship. I don't know if that's gone any farther though.
I want to we can come back to this, but I know that there are a couple people here with some announcements they want to make. So I'm going to let them do that, and then we can come back to other things to talk about too. Taylor from Friends of Family Farmers, do you want to talk about the survey that you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Taylor Sarman. I use he, him, his pronouns. It's nice to see you all. As you all were talking, I was in my head going through, I've been to that farmer's market and I've been to that farmer's market. So appreciate all the work that you all do. Like Amanda said, I am working with Friends of Family Farmers, and we are right now in the legislative planning session for 2023. And one of the things that has come up through our farmer and eater survey that is an area of interest for folks is taking another look at the home baking bill and the farm direct sales bill, and trying to figure out if there's any legislative tweaks that may be necessary or administrative rule tweaks that might be needed to be made at the agency level at ODA. And so we have pulled together a little survey, and it looks like it's already gotten some pretty good response rate from folks, but I will plop it into the chat so folks can take a look at it. And I would love if folks have questions about the process or want to flag some things right now that you all are thinking that you've seen on the ground that have been particular challenges around these two bills. Would love to write those down as well. And if not, you can totally fill out the survey, and that's how we'll get your feedback.
Great, yeah, thanks, Taylor. That definitely have some things that I would love to see changed about those bills and making them easier to understand as a market manager. Madeline, do you want to talk about cancellation stuff?
Yeah, thank you. So to pivot slightly from what we were talking about earlier, we noticed a lot of discussion in the Portland Farmers Market Google group about a high volume of vendor cancellations lately. And we were wondering if y'all could speak to maybe if it would be helpful for OFMA to do some messaging to the public about why that's happening, or just like a little disclaimer, like all this supply chain and, closures you're seeing around regular businesses are also happening at the farmers market. It's totally normal, or if we should avoid any sort of disclaimer at all.
I think you maybe should do one, but don't say supply chains in it. That's not what the issue is. It's the weather and the rain we had in the spring. It's the nighttime overnight temperatures that may have prevented farmers from planting and things like that. If you want to talk about crafts, I have the right word, but don't use, I mean, we have, if anything, when you say supply chains in reference to the farmers, you should be talking about how ours is the shortest possible. Excuse me, I'm going to decline a call. There we go. You can talk about our supply chains in a positive way in contrast to the national situation, but you should focus solely on, and we have a CAFM had to do this several weeks ago. We, even at our flagship market, we had a lot of holes, and as we walked around, we overheard people saying, where is everybody? Are all these businesses dying? What's going on? And so we felt that we had to immediately respond to that. The only question I would have is whether it's, I don't think it's too late, because we're going to be feeling the effects of those weather changes the entire season. mean, we should all be checking in with our fruit vendors and see which things are gone and which things aren't. Like cherries are going to be affected, but not non-existent. Certain plums at the end of the year are going to be non-existent. So these problems all year round, and we'll have less of some things for sure.
Got it. So it's more of a weather issue. I think I was getting some mixed messaging around that.
Hi, this is Mike Lynn from St. John. Sorry, I'm not on camera, but I just want to add to that conversation that we're seeing a lot of cancellations this season as well. Some of them are like weather and crop related, but a lot of our cancellations are due either to like staffing issues or COVID. We're still getting a lot of vendors canceling because of COVID. And it's not exactly like what we're talking about right now, but I've kind of wondered like how other markets go about enforcing their cancellation policies, like when it comes to, like, I've kind of looked at a lot of like the big markets cancellation policies, and like everybody basically has some version of the same, like, if you give us, 48 hours or 72 hours notice, then you get X number of freebies, whether it's 2 or 3, or it's 10% of your total dates or whatever the case might be. But like how strict is everyone about those rules at their markets? Because I mean, there's some vendors that have already canceled as many as they're allowed because of staffing, but like if they can't staff their booth, then I don't know. I would just be curious to hear what other people are doing in those types of situations.
Well, I think it depends on your exact setup of your discount structure. Could you explain yours, and maybe I could come up with an alternative?
Are you asking for like, what is the St. John Farmers Market cancellation policy?
Well, no, like what's the discount that, people, are you talking about a situation where you get X number of markets for the price of Y, that kind of thing?
No, what I mean is like you get X number of markets that you can cancel, with, in St. John's, it's with 48 hours notice, you're allowed to cancel up to 3. And then in our written policy, anything that's less than 48 hours or more than 3 cancellations in a season is still subject to the booth fee.
So you could write details about the why. In other words, you don't want to let them just cancel for weather all the time, because they could figure out the weather 48 hours ahead and cancel in time. But, if someone has a car crash, are you going to count that one? If somebody like runs into a deer on the way to the market, or their vehicle breaks down, or they get COVID, you could add some exceptions into how those things wouldn't count. But that's up to you what those exceptions should be.
It's definitely written that like cancellations are up to, waiving the cancellation fee would be up to the market manager's discretion. I guess I'm more just curious, like how willing are other markets to like make exceptions, or like, are people like pretty rigid? Like you have your 3 that you can cancel for any reason with 48 hours notice. Like what I've heard from some people that like they're pretty strict on that. And I guess, yeah, this is my first season, so I'm just kind of curious, like how strict are other markets in enforcing those policies? Like, because someone could figure out like every week they could just have a different excuse, and like how long do you let that go on before you say, okay, like there's enough, this is enough?
Well, for new vendors getting started, I think you have to have nearly infinite patience, because you'll never get new vendors started if you don't just keep, especially now, I think you should be reassuring them that it's not just them, that everyone's having trouble. And so somebody could, under my current rules, if someone keeps canceling on time, they can do that forever. And that's okay. But at a certain point, I might say, hey, I'm going to put somebody else in the space that I allotted for you. I'm going to put you on pause, on wait list, which is what my program would call it, and let me know when. But if they stop calling me every Thursday and don't let me know, then I'm going to start thinking about, not allocating that space to them. But it would have, it'd have to be a long period. And usually the person, when I keep bugging them, the person self-selects out and maybe switches over to being a consigner or something like that. I mean, if it's a new person, you really don't want to lose them, but chances are they're not ready yet. And you need to help them find their solution, which might be if you have a consignment option, or it might be that they need to wait a year or check with you in the fall to see if you have space.
We haven't had too much trouble down in Coos Bay. We have the same thing. It's a 48-hour policy. I send everything out on Monday. Some people do get a hold of me Tuesday morning. We've had produce issues. We've got, farmers that aren't ready. And so double things. I've just said, okay, let me know. We've postponed when they're going to come, and then I've let the public know, hey, they're coming. They're just having, production issues because of Mother Nature, and everybody's pretty good-hearted about that. I haven't had a whole lot of weather stuff, a little bit, but with the market being the way it is in the last 2 years where we've had to have a space in between and now we don't, they also know that space is at a premium. If they're constantly canceling, then, their space is going to be given away to someone else. I haven't had to do that though. They're pretty good about letting me know. I mean, they're really good. I mean, there's occasionally we've had emergencies and that kind of thing, but we really don't have anything that says you can only call out 3 days or whatever, as far as that goes. I don't know if that helped or not.
Certainly, if someone is not showing up, is literally no showing you 3 times, I think that, 3 times in a short period of time, that might be a cause. But somebody that actually calls and does the notice, I'm not understanding the need for that piece of the policy, but it's not my market, and I don't want to sound like I know what you should be doing in your market.
Right, that's the same way it is in Coos Bay. We don't have that. I did have a vendor that has been a no-show, and so I did pull them from the market, and I sent them things saying, you've been a no-show for 2 weeks. I'm taking you off. Please let me know if there was an issue, that kind of thing. But I don't have the policy that if you only have so many times you can call in. We do have also, they get passes. If you want to buy a pass at the beginning of the year for all the markets, they get a 10% discount. But if they call out for some reason, they don't get that money back for that week.
Yeah, I felt like I was pretty like we had the rules, but I was also flexible as to react to what my needs and the vendor's needs were. Like if they were just having a series of problems and weren't able to be at the market, and I still had, when they were able to show up, I had space for them. I just let them come because I wanted them there. But I feel like there's something that this season you guys are reporting that there's a number, the cancellation issue has changed. And so I don't know if what my experience a few years ago, and definitely before COVID, like I feel like the consideration is different, but just wanted to let you know that yes, there's the rules, and then a lot of market managers are flexible around that to react to what the individual situation is. And so you're not causing yourself problems necessarily if you're not as a first year manager, like, should I follow my rules all the time or not? Kind of feeling, yes, market managers definitely do other things than what the rules say.
We actually have a very primo section of the market that is just naked because everyone in that section has delayed. And it's a real big PR problem. I think some of the other vendors are looking at that and going, well, why are they leaving that naked? We weren't intentionally leaving it naked, but I have a market van parked in there, and maybe I've had one or two vendors here or there, but it's kind of embarrassing. But I don't know that doing a wholesale restructuring of who's where in the market right now is a great idea either.
What we did was I took some of our brand new vendors, like this is their first year, after I talked to some of our veteran vendors. Because like our berry people are gone, they're not here. Our peach people aren't, our cherry people aren't here. So again, it's in that main piece that's like the prime real estate. And I talked to some of those new people and I let them know, hey, you can have this for now, but these other people are coming back. This is the farmer section. And they're happy to try stuff out, to be there, that kind of thing, kind of a last minute fill in. But I'm not sure how your market works, how far out you've got your stuff marked out. I filled in some of the spaces with an unexpected. There's 3 spaces that were for a family that've been here forever and they had a death in the family. So they were gone for May and part of June, and then they'll be back. And because of that, we kind of filled that with nonprofits, but letting them know this is not your forever home. This is just for now. But I don't know, Rebecca, if that would cause you more work or not. I don't know.
It will. My experience is, I may end up doing that, but my experience is no matter what you say about this isn't your forever home, they get very mopey when you move them back to the space that they were originally assigned, and it can be difficult. And then next year they'll put on their application that space I had last year as if they have some ownership in it. So yeah, it could cause me, but on the other hand, now I have this big PR problem. So there's,
Right.
there's issues both ways. So I may do exactly what you're doing. We don't have any craft vendors. So we, it's, you either grew it, or for the most part, we have a couple restaurants and baked goods. You either grew it or you're not there. And
Right.
that's the message that we're trying to explain to our customers, is that yeah, we haven't had strawberries when we actually are starting to have the strawberries. We haven't had strawberries, but we're not going to let somebody come in and buy strawberries and come. So
Right.
we'll
Yeah,
have
we
the
wouldn't
blank
do that.
space.
We wouldn't do
Yeah.
that. No,
No, you
not
wouldn't
at
do
all.
that, but you have craft vendors that you can move into a farmer spot.
Right, craft vendors, and also, like I said, we've been basically using it with the nonprofits, because, and what we call community outreach, like
Yeah.
we had Coos Health and Wellness has been in one, the library has been in one, that kind of thing. So it fills it up. There's still a lot of activity, but they're very well aware that that's not their permanent spot, and they're actually really happy to just be in the market. The other thing is we did have some people that have said, oh, because on our application it shows a map, and we have the thing on there so they can say, I need the shady side of the street or the non, or that kind of thing. And we had a lot of brand new vendors specifically want spots on second block. And so when I went in and approved their application, I let them know, here's the qualifications for where spots are. As far as it depends on what you're growing, because farmers have the premium spots, obviously. We have spots for sponsors. We have spots for people that pay all year long. They've prepaid for the whole season. Then they get bumped up to where they're at. Plus, there is a little bit of seniority as well. Somebody that's been in the market since the market started 22 years ago, obviously is going to get a little bit more premier spot than somebody just started. But like I said, I'm not sure if that's going to be because you more work or less work. I don't know. That was just how we solved the problem.
These, I mean, the space assignment software, it's actually pretty easy now to move people around online on the map. And, you know, you could, if you did it on the day of, you could go back and fix it later to reflect what actually happened. So, you know, from that standpoint, I do block out the entire season, but I'm always making changes. So that isn't really a
'Cause
problem.
we use Manage My Market, and what typically happens is Monday mornings, I come in, look who C is supposed to be scheduled here, figure out the map. You know, there's some that are always in the same areas, but figure out the map. I send an email out, here's the map link, but I always say check in at the information booth first in case there's movement.
Mhm.
The question-
Well,
Had
I
like
might have
first step
a,
in the middle
Okay,
of the-
Rebecca
of
and
the thing.
Melissa, there's a question from South Waterfront
Oh,
Market
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I can get into.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to quickly ask, like, I have a whole list of on-call vendors. I have, you know, vendors that I've denied and reached back out to because of all the cancellations and delays with farmers. And I've gotten like virtually nothing. And so I'm just wondering if any other market managers have been experiencing this, or what your strategies are with, you know, just getting those on-call vendors who you maybe haven't talked to in months back to the market, or to the market for the first time, if it's been successful or not successful.
We don't really have on-call vendors. We've had vendors on the wait list, but luckily we've been able to go back to a more normal footprint. So we haven't had that issue yet. You know, most of like the nonprofits and even our crafters, when they sign on, we let them know that if we have to cut space, it would be them, and they've been really good. So I don't know. I wish I had answers for you.
Yeah, I did. I loved my on-call or wait list. But yeah, I always knew when I went to it that it was like 50% chance that somebody might actually be able to do, because I'm contacting them at last minute, you know, like that they would actually be able to do it. Sometimes during the season, I would like kind of send an email out to my on-call list saying, hey, just letting you all know I still have you on this list. Are you still out there? Are you still interested in this? And I mean, that helped me to know if they were interested, but I also think that that helped build a little bit of like letting them know that I am still thinking about them and trying to keep up that relationship so that they might be more favorable to take up a call when I needed to fill a space.
So that way you find out if they've joined another market and if all their product needs are already encompassed by that other market.
Yeah, it's stressful, I think, more so for like the look to my board of like, oh, is she even trying, you know? And I don't know if I wanted to know if it was a me thing or if it's a chronic on-call vendor is just difficult to bring in.
Yeah, it's not a you thing. It's just the nature of what on-call is. Like they can't commit to you perfectly and you can't commit to them perfectly. So when it works out for everybody, it's great, but a lot of the time it's just not going to work out. What only other thing is that like tended to find that if I contacted my on-call vendors by text or phone, I got to them better than email. So I'd make that extra effort to really get to them that way. Try multiple avenues.
Yeah. Okay.
It's afternoon, so we've reached the end of the hour. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for participating and sharing information with each other. I hope this was useful. Let me know if there's other topics you want to talk about or things that you want to see happen here. Thank you so much for coming.